Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you an overview of the Enhancement Shaman gameplay in the World of Warcraft Legion Alpha. Of course, this is still an alpha. That means this video is more concerned about the gameplay and basically, is it fun? I'm here in Mists of Pandaria, the shrine, so that we can actually get some more, useful damage numbers. In this video, I'll be going through the overall gameplay. To do that, I will first go through the very core rotation. I will then expand that out to have a look at all of the base abilities. We will then have a look at the talents, and finally we will be taking a look at the artifact weapon, which is indeed the Doomhammer. So let's start it off with our basic abilities. First of all, we've got a new resource. It's called Maelstrom. You start off at 0 and you can generate up to 100. It is generated by two things mainly. So if I hit P here, we'll go over to our Maelstrom Weapon. Whenever you deal damage with a melee weapon, you generate 5 Maelstrom. Of course, you've got an offhand and a main hand, so you're getting quite a lot of Maelstrom via your auto attacks. And in addition to that, we've got Rockbiter. 10-yard range, you assault your target with Earthen Power, dealing a bit of nature damage, and more importantly, generating 10 Maelstrom. So we're generating all this Maelstrom. What the hell are we doing with it? We are spending it, of course, on two different things: Storm Strike and Lava Lash. Storm Strike costs 60 Maelstrom and has a 30-second cooldown. It does heavy damage, so you want to be keeping this on cooldown. Lava Lash does less than half the amount of damage, but costs half the Maelstrom, so this is basically your filler. It doesn't actually have a cooldown. And then finally, we've got Flame Tongue, 10-yard range, and it will do some damage to your target, but more importantly, it empowers your weapon, which makes it do additional fire damage when it hits. Of course, there are loads of other abilities, so don't worry, this ends up being a spec with quite a few buttons. Before I get into gameplay though, there are some passives which I need to talk about. So then, here's our mastery. Enhanced Elements. It increases the chance to Stormfury and Wind Fury by 6%, based on your mastery of course, and increases all fire, frost, and nature damage done by 32%. Of course, that all depends on your mastery, so you might be wondering, what's Stormfury? What's Wind Fury? Well, Wind Fury, each of your main hand attacks has a 9% chance to trigger 3 extra attacks, dealing 1000 physical damage. I assume that's each. Then we've got Stormfury. Each of your attacks has a 4% chance to cause Stormfury, which resets the cooldown on Storm Strike, which is our big button, and causes your next Storm Strike to cost 50% less Maelstrom and trigger no cooldown. So, what do we actually do? Well, you're running into your target, you want to activate Flame Tongue, and then we basically just start generating and spending Maelstrom in the correct manner, which is pretty darn simple. Don't worry though, things get a lot faster paced in a bit. You'd never want to completely run out of Maelstrom though, because of the way this plays out. Basically, you will proc a Storm Strike that costs 30 Maelstrom because of the proc, which, that will cost you 30 Maelstrom to do. But immediately after that, you'll be able to spend 60 Maelstrom on the follow-up Storm Strike. So ideally, you always want to be hovering maybe at like 40 or 50 Maelstrom, so all of that feels nice. Because if you completely starve yourself, and then you use your proc Storm Strike, you're going to end up pretty much like resource starving yourself, and this will be off cooldown for a few seconds while you generate Maelstrom, which is a pretty crap situation. You can see there, I procced it while I was at high Maelstrom, meaning I was instantly able to cast that and then cast the follow-up, whereas now I had to wait a little bit to cast the follow-up on. Anyhow, that's the very basic gameplay. Let's have a look over the actual abilities themselves. And I'm just going to cover the base abilities, I will cover talents after that, and then we're going to bring it into full-on gameplay, and that's hopefully where you'll really get an understanding for how this plays. So then, what have we got? Well, Crash Lightning. This is your real AoE thing. 20 Maelstrom, 5-second cooldown. Attacks enemies in front of you, dealing about 1000 damage, but more importantly, if you hit more than one target, you enhance both of your weapons with lightning, causing Storm Strike and Lava Lash to deal additional 2,700 damage to all targets in front of you, lasting for 10 seconds. So in an AoE situation, you want to maintain uptime on your Crash Lightning buff. Honestly, it seems a little bit like a longer version of Beast Cleave on a BM Hunter. We've got Farsight, which is pretty much the same. Feral Spirit, which I believe is the same. Basically, you summon in wolves to attack stuff for you. They last for 15 seconds, and your haste is increased while they're there, and you also generate Maelstrom. I think it's extra 5 per second for 30 seconds. It's currently got a 1 minute cooldown, but that's just because of the talent that I've got. Then Flame Tongue, which I've already covered. We've got Frostbrand. You attack your enemy doing pretty light frost damage, but more importantly, you reduce their movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds. We then have Ghost Wolf, which just puts you into your Ghost Wolf form, which is pretty much the same. Then Healing Surge costs 0 to 25 Maelstrom, healing a target for 13,000, and then healing is increased up to 100% based on the amount of Maelstrom spent. So that's a little bit of self-healing and utility, but it's not super powerful. We've got Heroism, which thankfully has not been touched, so you increase haste by 30% for all party and raid members. Lovely stuff, and really, the way that haste works on this class, where it reduces your, GCD and stuff, oh, this is crazy to play with Heroism on. It's really quite fun. We've got Hex, which is pretty much just Hex. Lava Lash, just some of your filler. Lightning Bolt, yes, I forgot about this. 0 to 15 Maelstrom, 30-yard range. It basically does not that much damage, but does do additional damage based on the amount of Maelstrom spent. I suppose if you're 30 yards off, it gives you something to do, and it is also instant. We then got Purge. You purge a enemy target, removing one beneficial magic effect, costing 20 Maelstrom. Rockbiter, that I've already covered. Shamanistic Rage just reduces all damage taken by 30%. Spirit Walk, this is pretty cool, so it will increase your movement speed by 60% for 15 seconds. 15, that's really quite a lot. But more importantly, well, depending on your usage, removes all movement impairing effects, which is pretty damn cool. We've got Storm Strike, which I've already covered, Water Walking, which allows you to walk on water, Wind Shear, which is your interrupt on a 12-second cooldown, 25-yard range, and then we move into some of our various passives, which I think I still need to cover Storm Lash, so whenever you attack with your weapon enhanced, you have a chance to enhance up to 2 allies, or yourself, causing attacks and spellcasts to do additional nature damage. The big question is this going to encourage you stacking up a few shamans so that this Stormlash effect is kind of going around everyone? Not really sure how that mechanic's going to pan out overall, but again, it is alpha. Let's equip the Doomhammer, and by the way, that's what it looks like. You actually summon in a kind of magical, well, elemental version of it to fight with you. So looking at what it does, first of all, it's passive. Whenever you use Flame Tongue, Frostbrand, or Rockbiter, you have a chance to supercharge Doomhammer with an elemental type, causing devastating effects to your enemies. Lovely stuff. But also a terrible tooltip. A really terrible tooltip. We'll get more into its passive though in a bit once we get into the gameplay. Then we've got Doom Winds, 45-second cooldown. Unleash the inner power of Doomhammer, causing all attacks to trigger Wind Fury and increasing the damage of Wind Fury by 200% for 6 seconds. Basically, that's just crazy-ass damage for 45 seconds. Let's move on to the other major ones. So we've got Unleash Doom. Storm Strike has a chance to cause Doomhammer to unleash the power of the elements, causing special attacks to also cause arcs of lightning or streaks of lava at your target. Again, passive not that interesting, but a rubbish tooltip. Moving up, we've got Doom Wolves. Doomhammer will imbue your feral spirits with either fire, frost, or lightning, granting them an extra unique ability, though we don't have enough artifact power to actually test that out, sadly. And then we've got Doom Vortex. Whenever you use Lava Lash, Doomhammer releases a fiery tornado at your target for 3 seconds and deals 5,000 damage to enemies within 3 yards. A lot of these, though, they're passive. They don't really do that much that's particularly interactive, which is a bit unfortunate. As far as all these tiny little middle things go, I'll just go over them super quickly. Gathering of the Maelstrom, Rockbiter has a 5% chance per point to generate 100% additional Maelstrom, so that's going to give you even more. We've got Gathering Storms. Each target hit by Crash Lightning increases damage of your next Storm Strike by 2% per point. Spirit of the Maelstrom. While in combat and in Ghost Wolf form, you generate 1 Maelstrom every 2 seconds. A little bit boring. Spiritual Healing increases healing from Healing Surge. Hurricane. When Stormfury activates, your next Storm Strike will deal 50% additional damage. That really does improve Stormfury a lot. And then Fueled by Rage, Shamanistic Rage basically gives you a 10% self-heal over the next 15 seconds. We've got Hammer of Storms, which increases Storm Strike damage. We've got Wind Strikes, which means that when Stormfury activates, you gain 3% attack speed for 3 seconds. That will be 9% for, I assume, 3 seconds. And once that's fully pointed up. So between these two, or which ones? These two? Yeah, these two, you're going to have an extremely powerful Stormfury. Then we've got Stormfury. Storm Strike has a 30% chance to deal additional damage, and this effect can actually chain off itself. So you can have multiple of these going on, which is pretty crazy if you really get some good luck. Forged by Lava, damage of Lava Lash increased by 3%. Surge of the Elements increases the damage of your Frostbrand, Flame Tongue, and Rockbiter by 3%. And then finally, Alpha Wolf. Whenever Feral Spirits are active, if you use Crash Lightning, your wolves will also use area attacks for the next 10 seconds. Alright, talent time, and this is where stuff gets pretty interesting. So, first of all, we've got Wind Song on the level 15 tier. Attacks your enemy for a bunch of nature damage, 30-second cooldown, 10-yard range, but it enhances your weapons with wind, increasing attack speed by 50% for 15 seconds. You have 50% uptime on that 50% attack speed buff. It's pretty damn cool, and this is actually the first of a theme. We've got loads of short cooldown abilities. We move on to Spiritual Resonance, increases Maelstrom generation provided by Rockbiter and Feral Spirits by 10%, so that's giving you even more Maelstrom. And then we've got Fist of Stone, again another short cooldown. Draw on the power of the ground beneath you, encasing your weapons in stone, increasing crit by 10%, and all damage dealt by 5% for 10 seconds, but reducing attack speed by 50% and movement speed by 50%. So if you're building super around haste, this might not be the best thing ever, but as an example, if you're completely prioritizing your storm strikes, then Fist of Stone will be very good. I assume we will have to see how all this plays out. Personally, I prefer the usage of Wind Song. I just think it's a little bit more fun, and certainly managing the movement speed decrease of Fist of Stone is going to be a challenge to overcome. On to the 30 tier, Gust of Wind. You basically jump yourself forward like this. There you go. And we've got Feral Lunge, 25-yard range, 30-second cooldown, lunge at your enemy, striking them with like 20,000 physical damage, and 10,000 with your offhand. It's only usable in Ghost Wolf. I don't see that being something that you'll actually be using in combat. That'll just be a closer, because it's going to take a GCD to go into Wolf, and then a GCD to use Feral Lunge, which doesn't seem like the most efficient thing to do. Still though, it's pretty cool, and maybe for PvP that will be a good option. Then we've got Wind Rush Totem. Summons down a totem with a bunch of health, 6,000, at the target location for 15 seconds, and it gives all allies who pass within 10 yards 60% increased movement speed for 5 seconds, 1 minute cooldown. That is a crazy good kind of raid-wide utility. Very, very cool ability. Next, we've got Lightning Surge Totem. This summons in an air totem with 5 health at the target location, gathers electricity from the surrounding area, and then explodes after 5 seconds to stun. Basically, that's already in the game. We've got Earth Grab Totem, which I believe is the same as the current Earth Grab Totem, and then Voodoo Totem, which I believe is new. Summons a Voodoo Totem with 6,000 health at the target, destination for 10 seconds, it pulses every 5 seconds, hexing all enemies within 3 yards for 10 seconds. Enemies can only be hexed once, and this replaces hex, so basically is giving you an enhanced/different kind of hex. That said, I never really enjoyed the totem gameplay, and one thing you will notice, baseline, I'm not dropping totems all the time. They've definitely changed that. Personally, I'm okay with that, though I could see some experienced shamans not really liking the idea of losing their totems. We move on to the level 60 tier Lightning Shield. 20 Maelstrom plus 5 per second, 1 minute cooldown. Surround yourself with a shield of lightning for 15 seconds that does damage to a random enemy within 10 yards, and that'll just be ticking away. This is a pretty interesting one, so while it says this lasts for 15 seconds, I'll just use it here. 1 minute cooldown as well, so again, another short cooldown. But if I was just to generate my, 30 Maelstrom as an example. So there you go, I've got 39 now. If I generate this, because it uses 5 per second, whenever it runs out, that will disappear. So that's only going to be worthwhile, kind of, if you're able to keep it going for its full duration. And this actually does tie into Fury of Air, which again, I shall cover in a minute. We've got Ancestral Swiftness, increases haste by 10% and attack speed by 10% at all times. I enjoy this because it just makes things fast, which is quite fun. We've got Landslide. Rockbiter enhances your weapon, giving you increased attack power by 20%. I feel that's less interesting than anything that gives haste, because haste really is so perceptible to the gameplay of this class. We move on to Tempest. Whenever Stormfury is activated, you gain 2 Storm Strikes, which are at a 50% Maelstrom cost and trigger no cooldown. So basically, this is really buffing up your effect of Stormfury. Pretty damn cool, actually, and because this is buffing you know, this is giving you additional storm strikes. This is increasing your Maelstrom usage on those kind of like melee abilities. That does change out the spec somewhat. And if you take like Tempest, Lightning Shield, Wind Song, like if you take all of the big cooldowns, you'll find yourself in a situation where your Maelstrom kind of allocation means that you won't be able to fully use something like Fury of Air or Lightning Shield. So anyway, let's just put this back to Ancestral Swiftness and have a look at Spiritual Affinity. This will reduce the cooldown of Feral Spirits by 60 seconds. That puts it down to a 1-minute cooldown. Of course, the really cool thing about this is that while Feral Spirits are up, you get increased haste, which is really awesome. It makes the spec feel like a lot of fun, and as an example, you can align your Feral Spirit with every second Wind Song, which gives you a crazy amount of haste, which is super fun. Then we've got Sundering, 60 Maelstrom, 20-second cooldown. You shatter a line of like earth stuff. It does some physical damage, and it also knocks enemies back. I'm just going to go and use it on this target here. So let's generate us some delicious Maelstrom all the way up to 60. And I'll go back, and let's just click this, and as you can see, very cool spell effect. And I think I kind of missed the target, so let's just do that again. Alright, here we go. And there you go, didn't do that much damage. If that was something that could be knocked back, it would be knocked back. It doesn't do that much damage though, I don't really know what's up. I would just take Spiritual Affinity. Anyway, let's move on. Fury of Air. This is kind of similar to Lightning Shield in that it's 20 Maelstrom plus 5 per second. It's on a 30-second cooldown though. You create a Vortex of Wind 8 yards around you, dealing 3,000 damage every 1 second for 10 seconds to enemies caught in the storm, and it also slows them by 30% for 3 seconds. So if I activate that, and it's actually already on my bars, so we'll go over here, spend our Maelstrom, and again, if I was to run out of Maelstrom, then this effect would end early, so I would have to be careful not to say blow it all on Storm Strikes or Lava Lashes. Pretty cool ability, though. As an example, if you were to take Fury of Air and Lightning Shield and a Tempest, then it gets to the stage where you really end up running a little bit low on Maelstrom, at least based on my testing, and you just get to the stage where there's kind of too many short cooldown abilities and it feels a little bit muddled. We've then got Crashing Storm. This just increases the range of Crash Lightning by 4 yards. We've got Stone Fist Strike, 30 Maelstrom, 30-second cooldown, does light damage, but it does double damage if an enemy is immune to stuns, and of course it will stun an enemy for 5 seconds. Though if you look at this tier, for DPS, I think it's pretty clear that Fury of Air is what you want to be using, which is why I would go then for Spiritual Affinity on the 75 tier, and perhaps Ancestral Swiftness on the 60 tier. I think that's overall the best playability. Anyway, let's move on to the level 100s. Ascendance, 5-minute cooldown. The Shaman transforms into an Air Ascendant for 30 seconds. When you're in this form, you generate 4 Maelstrom per second, and your auto attacks and Storm Strikes become wind attacks, bypassing armor, and they also have a 30-yard range. Basically, you get loads of Maelstrom, and you're bypassing armor, you're doing crazy-ass damage. It's pretty fun. And I suppose I really should show you what that form looks like, so I'll just drag it over here to my bar. We'll run in, and yeah, like, it's pretty damn cool looking. I'll just, you know, apply a few things like that on my Feral Spirit. You can see, you know, my haste is pretty mental, and yeah, you know, it's a pretty fun spec in this case. It's very fast-paced, is what you'll notice. For some reason, this is bugging out, and I'm not able to Wind Strike. Don't know what was up there. I found some bizarre kind of issues with the alpha. Now, there is something, you'll notice my Lava Lash is like tingling. I'll explain that to you in a little bit. It actually ties into my Artifacts weapon. Anyway, let's go back. So that's Ascendance. We've got Feral Kin. This is a 4-minute cooldown. Summons a Spirit Wolf to fight for 30 seconds. And while the Spirit's active, you get increased haste and additional Maelstrom generation. Basically, this is a souped-up wolf, though, because it's once every 4 minutes as opposed to once every minute. I feel like it's less fun in terms of the overall gameplay, so I wouldn't really go for that. We then have Earthen Spike. Now, this one is interesting. 30 Maelstrom, 20-second cooldown, 10-yard range, summon an Earthen Spike, instantly doing 36,000 physical damage, major damage, but, if you look here, increases the physical and nature damage the target takes by 10% for 10 seconds. Here's the crazy thing. Apparently this damage increase is for everyone who attacks the target. So in a raid, you would probably want 2 Shamans rotating this. That seems like a really silly design currently, and I find it very hard to believe that that will actually make it in. it's probably just an effect of how things actually are now. However, even if it's just giving you a buff, or, you know, it's giving the enemy a damage, like, taken increase that only applies to you, I think this is still the one that's worth having. So I'm going to put that in my bars. What I find is that, as an example, you can Windsong every 30 seconds, and Earthen Spike every 20 seconds, and Feral Spirit every minute. Basically, these guys end up lining up with each other quite a lot, and this is a overall look at the spec, or an overall kind of talent build that feels decently comfortable for me to play. Anyway, I've just somewhat cleaned up the talents of the ones that I actually want to show you here. Now, there is one criticism. This is Enhancement Shaman. There are loads of different enhancements. There are too many. If you select every single short cooldown, that's just too many for it to really be viable to play. So the question is, how many enhancements should Enhancement have? I think this feels pretty okay. And that's also, of course, you've got Doom Winds as well, which is another short cooldown. So I'm just going to run into combat here, and we'll see roughly what it's like. So I'll Rock Biter, and, you know, we'll just kind of apply everything else. This is a little bit messy, because it's kind of, you know, on the video, which makes everything a little bit trickier to do, unfortunately. But as you can see, you know, stuff is proccing a lot. The amount of mail, I am spamming my most, like, expensive ability, and I can barely get rid of that Maelstrom. Should really do Fury of Air. That really says a lot. This spec is crazy fast. You know, you can see I slightly missed the timing of Earth Spike, which is going to throw some other timings off. This is all about getting enhancements to line up, and right now there's so many things which you ideally want to have lined up that it could end up being a little bit awkward. That said, it's a very fast-paced spec, extremely fast-paced. A lot of people are going to really appreciate that. So, you know, it's a funny spec to analyze overall. Comparing this to, say, the Hunter, like, I'm immediately finding myself enjoying parts of this a good bit more because there's things to line up, there's stuff to not fail at. That seems a bit more interesting on the face of it. Here you can see Earthen Spike and Windsong have lined up, so this will be a period of particularly good damage for me. Not that I've got a crazy amount of control of that, other than just, you know, not failing with actually using these abilities. You know, you've got to maintain your Flame Tongue. So it's a funny spec. I don't know, should they, like, tone down the pace? Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. That's, I suppose, going to come down to what the existing Shamans really want out of this spec. I'm finding this to be quite enjoyable. I'll say that much. You know, there's an example. I just used Doom Winds and Windsong. They just lined up, so now I'm going to be doing some more damage. You know, there's lots of nice little windows that appear, and they appear all the time. There is one concern that you might just feel like all you're doing with this spec is hitting cooldowns and enhancing yourself, and not really getting to kind of relax into a main rotation. That could be a little bit of a worry. I mean, I just hit some things, and already I've got more things to hit in terms of the cooldowns and just managing them. I don't know what I think about that, honestly. It probably needs a bit more time to sink in throughout the alpha. Right now, I'm enjoying having a spec where it's just screaming, hey, here's buttons to hit, go do stuff. You know, the core rotation does seem to be quite fast-paced, quite fun, quite frantic, visually pretty cool, and I think very thematic. I'm happy that there's less stuff going on with totems, because I always found it to be awkward and clunky. I know a lot of people thought the Warlord's implementation was awkward and clunky, so make of that what you will. I think, personally, for me, that's an increase in how much I enjoy the spec. It's still fast-paced, lots of buttons to hit. So overall, my initial impressions are quite good, but obviously we're going to have to wait and see how this all pans out and what Blizzard does with people's feedback. I don't think my feedback for this is the most useful because I don't play this spec normally, other than I think it's kind of fun at the minute, but they maybe need to reshuffle some of these talent tiers and perhaps work out a better balance of maybe the timings with these cooldowns, or just the quantity of them. Perhaps there is just too many. Because while you may say, well, look, that's just your talent build, you could choose one that's less crazy. But I suppose a lot of people are thinking, well, look, generally the more active abilities, the more DPS. That's how they balance it. Whatever's got the higher skill cap usually will be doing, 5 to 10%, whatever, more damage than the easier talent spec. That's something we'll just have to balance, and right now we don't really, we've got some logging tools and things like that at the minute. They've got the advanced combat log stuff actually just put into the alpha, but realistically, we need to wait until they do more tuning passes, because right now, everything is very first draft. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.